So Coach Potter, Coach Thurmond, impressive recruiting class this year. Just maybe a general statement about the class.
Really excited about the class as a whole. Every year's so different. Like this is a pretty big class for us to sign 4 guys in one class. We don't do that very often, which means that we're excited about each of them enough to sign a big class because it means it's harder to add more guys next year because of that. So we like them. You know, it's cool to have 3 kids from Washington. Our team has always been made up mostly of guys from Washington, so it's fun to have those guys. Got another guy from Canada, Jordan. We're excited about that too. We've tried to always get the best players out of there. So nice diversity in the class as far as skill sets. We wanted to add a longer hitter, and we did in Greg Gilday. We got Frank, who's just Mr. Precise. Spencer's got fun energy, and Jordan's just a silent assassin that just is really, really solid worker and player. So a lot of variety in the group.
All right, so maybe just go through each guy, starting with Frank Garber.
So Frank is from Juanita High School here, and we've been recruiting Frank for several years, and within the rules. But we've been watching him for a long time. He's been winning tournaments for a long time, and in fact, I remember the first time I ever watched him play. Worked really hard to get Frank. He had a lot of great options, and he chose Washington. We're thrilled to have him. He's great student, works hard, mature player, hits a lot of fairways and a lot of greens, got a nice wedge game. He's very level-headed. He's kind of mature beyond his years on the golf course. So, you know, he's a guy that we expect big things from.
All right, another local product, Spencer Weiss. Maybe Dan, you want to?
Yeah, Spencer was actually the first guy that we committed in the 2014 class. So the day that he actually committed, he and his dad, we got together with him at one of our local courses, and it was awesome. He really expressed his interest in being here. At the same time, we were kind of prepared to tell him that there was a spot on the team for him, and everybody got up and high-fived and hugged, and it was a really cool moment. So it was a really cool way to start off the first of the four commits that we had in the class. And Spencer is a guy that we've seen as having a lot of potential. He's had good results. He's been one of the best players in the state for several years, but we really see him as a guy that can come into his own and improve even more as he gets with a team of good players. He's respected by his peers, and he's going to be a lot of fun for these guys as a teammate. He's got a great big personality.
And he plays faster than anybody we've ever had in this program, and I like that.
All right, and then the last local product is Greg Gilday.
Yeah, so Greg, we've watched for a couple years, and we've kind of had him on the radar, but he really blew up this July, June, July. Started to play a lot better late spring. We noted that, and then all of a sudden in July he starts winning everything. And we went out and watched him play, and like, wow, this guy has really improved, and he's awesome. So he was kind of a late bloomer for us. Talked to him on the phone and just kind of fell in love with him. Just great energy, cool kid, and somebody we really needed to have. So, a lot of times that happens a lot earlier than that, but in Greg's case, it was us kind of being patient and then getting after it when the time came. He's a long hitter, but he's got a great touch around the greens. He's not a sloppy long hitter. That's what surprised me. I knew he was a long hitter, but he was a little bit erratic, and then watching him this summer learn how to control his ball, thrive under pressure, and then his scoring skills around the greens got me excited too. And he's just a riot to be around.
All right, then finally, going on the Canadian and the Asian connection with Jordan Liu.
Go ahead. So Jordan's a great kid. We're really looking forward to having Jordan down. We've been lucky enough to have several awesome players from Canada. We just graduated last year. Charlie Hughes, who had a great 4-year career for us. We've got Kevin Kwan right now, who's a freshman from the Vancouver area, and Jordan Liu. We certainly expect to kind of follow in a long line of Canadian players that have been very successful. He's a guy that's awesome work ethic, kind of an interesting story. His parents still live in Taiwan, and Jordan and his sister live in the Vancouver area. His sister goes to college there, and Jordan actually lives with his sister. So kind of a unique story, really another mature kid, kind of beyond his years, has really figured out how to become a great competitor and compete at a high level. He's got a great support system at his home course up there in Canada. So we were really drawn to just kind of his work ethic and his ability to figure things out on his own. And he's a great player. I mean, he's had some awesome results. So we're really excited to have him and kind of round out that class.
Based on the process, just what are the recruiting hotbeds right now that would be considered out of state for you guys? Where do you really try to focus your efforts?
Dan mentioned Canada. We've done really well in British Columbia. And he mentioned the recent Canadians, but Darren Wallace, Nick Taylor, James Lepp, Gordy Scott, Scott Krall. I mean, those guys are all in the last decade that have made a big impact. And specifically, James was a national champion, and Darren was an All-American player, and Nick was the #1 amateur in the world. So that's a key area for us. What you've seen in our roster, though, is we've been spending a lot more time in California. There's a lot of great players down there, and the Californians we've had have a good experience here, and they like it. And so we've been recruiting down there more often. This freshman we have, Corey Pereira, is incredible. Jonathan Sanders, Trevor Sims, we see what he's done, and Kyle Bowser. I mean, we've had a lot of success recently in California too, and we noticed as our program's gotten better that the California kids really do look at Washington as an option.
I know the fans always love it when the in-state guys can stay home, but in general, how is the health? I mean, of junior golf in the state of Washington right now in terms of how they can maybe make an impact for Washington golf? I mean, is it as strong as it's ever been? Obviously, you have some guys from in-state this year, but generally speaking, is it continuing to grow, continuing to get better?
We've always believed that if we could get the best players out of the state of Washington, and BC included, that we would be at the very, very top of college golf. I think this little window right now might be the first time that that's not the case. I think that's just a blip on the radar. I think generally Washington's going to produce great players, and British Columbia as well, and that'll probably always be our first point that we look to. But our priority is winning, and if we don't feel like we can get the talent that we need to win out of Washington, or if they're not choosing us for some reason, then we have a lot of other places we can go to.
I know in the big sports, they always talk about the top programs reloading as opposed to rebuilding. Do you feel like the program's gotten to the point now where you guys are reloading?
I would say we'd like to think of it that way, most definitely. I mean, it's tough when you have some individuals that have been so successful, and a Nick Taylor, as Matt mentioned, who was a McCormick medal winner and the #1 amateur in the world, and more recently Chris Williams graduated as the #1 amateur player in the world. So you don't necessarily just replace those guys. I mean, but at the same time, we've Matt mentioned Corey Pereira and Kevin Kwan are two guys that are going to come in and have played right away and competed well. So, and we have, Pan is a junior this year, and for a time this summer was the #1 ranked amateur in the world. So, yeah, we've got more and more people that are taking notice of Washington golf all over the world, really, especially with Pan's success and some other guys. So. So yeah, we do feel like we can reload and plug guys in that can be competitive right away.
You mentioned Taylor, you mentioned Williams, you mentioned Pan, 3 #1 players in the world. Are kids now coming to you guys instead of the other way around?
Absolutely, and I think people know that you can come here and you can become great. That makes our job a lot tougher, though. It's one thing to have a handful of guys and have to recruit them really hard, but now when the numbers, there's a lot more out there that would like to come here. Having to choose which ones are the right fit for you means a lot more work for us. It's great work. We love that problem, but at the same time, you don't want to get away from what got you here in the first place. And those guys weren't necessarily all, especially in the case of Nick and Chris to a certain extent, they were not the top of the class necessarily at the time when we signed them. We saw something in them, and so. You can chase rankings or stars, whatever it is, but that's not always what we should be doing, even though we could. We want to find the right players that we think will really improve a lot and thrive here.
And you told me that this is kind of a downtime for you guys now that you've signed your players. Can you kind of tease us with some things that you guys might have on the horizon that you're working on?
Well, we're always working on recruiting. So, the day we signed those 2014 kids, all we started thinking about was 2015 and 2016 and 2017. So we work on that behind the scenes. The spring's going to be awesome. This group is pretty young, although we do have some veteran leadership. I think the core of the team, the younger guys that are going to make all the difference, you're going to see them get really good this spring. I think we'll be under the radar most of the year, but by the end of the year, we're going to be really tough to beat.